Welcome to Playing with Fire, the podcast for people who are ready to custom build their love.
We're talking about non-monogamy, however you design it, as an individuation opportunity.
Want to leave the default and make your life spectacularly you? You're in the right place. Ken, we got a great question from a listener. I just want to read it
I
because
love listener questions.
They worded it so beautifully. They wrote, I'm only 8 months in with polyamory and I've struck gold. But I also know that this gold is fickle and I want to be prepared for when the chemical cocktail wears off. They're talking about NRE. So what they're looking for is some advice on how to navigate emotions, schedule, and expectations while in two NRE relationships at the same time. NRE as in new relationship energy. 8 months in, and yeah, that is striking gold, and I'm really happy for you. So swooning newbie from Washington, way to go! I'm loving this for you.
That's great. That is so great.
But I'm also loving how the forethought, the forethought about, hey, this is complicated in a new way, and I don't know what's going to happen, and what happens when the chemical cocktail of NRE stops being the primary mover and motivator in this relationship context. What are we going to do? So right away, when I thought about this, I thought of you actually, because I thought of how I love you so much and you struggle when expectations get big. I see you go into this sort of flutteriness, and I do it too, but I can see it in you. Sure. So when expectations, when there's so many opportunities, and NRE, new relationship energy, puts you into this beautiful space where everything feels like a shiny object. Everything is rainbows and light and so many awesome things.
As you were reading it, and you know how much I like shiny things, as you were reading that question, I was thinking about how overwhelming that sounds. Because for me, it's like, oh, there's so much. There's so many different places to put the energy. And yeah, that sounds like a very noisy emotional environment. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. And my personal experience is that a noisy emotional environment, that's how it feels for me. And I like it. Right. Yep. I have found myself craving that, creating it. I have found myself so excited to be in a time where NRE was present. And for me, the experience is often that if I'm in that new relationship energy and I'm in that space of wondering into what's possible, feeling some lack of clarity, there's some ambiguity. So maybe even a little bit of edge. We did an episode sorting out new relationship energy from limerence, where limerence, there's ambivalence and you don't know whether you can have the person, you don't know whether you're getting ambiguous messages, right?
Yep.
But NRE also has a level of ambiguity because none of us knows what's going to happen. We don't know whether this person is going to, even if they're falling head over heels or rising in love with us, we don't know what's going to happen. So there is that sense of, because we don't know, a whole bunch of stuff is going on neurochemically. And then, there are times, there are seasons of life, and there are also just seasons, quite literally seasons. I have only ever had really profound multiple NRE times during spring. I have literally only felt it happen during spring. And I think it's within me, my capacity really increases. I live in New England. I feel as the snow melts away, as things start to move out of mud and stick season, I feel myself available for multiplicity. I feel myself also seeing the bright, shiny objects and wanting to do all the things, and I want everything to work.
That makes perfect sense to me. Here, like you said, in New England, where the cold starts to ease, the snow goes away, it gets messy and sloppy, but also you start to smell things out in the world. There's all this potential. Everything feels like potential for a while. And it's really easy to project that out onto relationships that are happening.
That's exactly what I mean. So this may not be relevant for the question asker, but I have noticed that I have a tendency to feel my NRE more strongly. So if I start dating a couple of people or several people in the span of the springtime months, I am more likely to find myself in the kind of NRE that feels a little unstable and feels very wishful and very much like potential and projection.
Yeah.
Very much like I am seeing what I want to see out in the world. I'm projecting my stuff onto them and
Yeah.
hoping it'll all work out. So I want to dig deeper into the question. But if you are a person who's never experienced new relationship energy in multiple places, then this might all feel like, well, what the hell do I have to plan on this? And I just want to set your mind at ease. I don't think this is happening all the time everywhere. And I do think we have some choice in it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. I mean,
I don't,
saying they struck gold, that is like the kind of odds we're talking about. This that
well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the odds are. I don't know that we don't have data on that. But
no.
it's also not like being struck with lightning. It's not just happening to you. You're
Mm,
co-creating it.
hmm.
You are
Yeah, that's
part
good.
of the relational system that is fostering and nurturing these feelings of NRE. And when you're doing that, my questions start to be about, well, what is it that you're craving? What are you creating? And so I think that the question asked by the listener is apt. How do I manage expectations? How do I manage it? Some of it's really mundane. Like, what am I going to do about time and the differences that I don't quite want to say inevitably, but will likely show up as NRE shows up. It doesn't necessarily stay the same way in different partnerships. So if you imagine every dyad you're in is experiencing some level of juiciness versus, say, dryness. Like if you're on the juicy to dry spectrum of relationship,
Yeah.
okay, I'm just coming up with this. Go with me here for a second. If you're in a really juicy time with two people, it doesn't mean it's going to stay juicy with both of them
Hmm.
the same amount of time. So some of the expectations to be managing are what happens if it wears off a little earlier with one person than the other. What will you start doing? Are you going to start judging? So
Hmm.
now
Yeah.
I want to get
Right.
into like, what's the value? How do you interpret? What's the meaning you make out of new relationship energy? Are you a person who sees it as valuable and like one of the best parts of polyamory? Or are you a person who sees new relationship energy as kind of sketchy, a little dangerous? You've gotten into some scrapes before. Um, like how do you I don't even know how you really interpreted it now.
Well, how I interpret NRE now as the person that I am now.
Yeah.
Um, well, the way I think, to some extent, the way I always have, which is cautiously. I'm more of a kind of like reserved
Hmm.
person, and I'm working on engaging more. But I enjoy seeing. Oh, here's what I do. So I absolutely project out my wants for life, the particular things that I like about life. I project them out,
Hmm.
and knowing that's true, I like to find out what sticks, like what's actually true for them and what isn't.
Yeah.
So it's a fun game of discovery. And so I think that's where I come into it from.
Okay. And so if you're seeing NRE as like a fun bonus, that's kind of where I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
Like that's the
Hmm.
meaning you're making out of it.
Yeah.
Now I've had plenty of people who I've worked with say that NRE is like the primary reason that they do
Mm.
multiple relationships because they love that feeling. They love the feeling of falling. They love the feeling of just getting totally awash in a person. Um, if you're like looking for that, then the ebbing away of NRE might feel like a threat. You
Oh.
might even
Hmm.
start to feel like, well, let's imagine that you have two people that you're feeling NRE for. If it starts to ebb away with one, but you've still got it going on with the other, do you drop the one that it's ebbing?
Yeah, I heard you mention the possibility of judgment coming in if I'm dealing with two different NRE relationships and one of them the NRE shifts.
Yeah.
Now I could be comparing them. I mean, we're humans. We will compare. It's a question of what we do with it. But we could start making judgments about the nature of the relationship, not the nature of the NRE.
Right. Which this brings us to a really interesting point because some relationships are moving from new relationship energy to established relationship energy in a pretty clear trajectory. This might be because you're on a bit of a relationship escalator. Because remember, we can be on the relationship escalator with plenty of relationships,
Yeah.
even though we can't fulfill all of those roles, but we don't get an automatic pass at like, oh, I'm not on the relationship escalator just because it's polyamory. We have to actually look at, are we intentionally moving? Is that the intention? Are we building toward
Yep.
a set of like goals in this relationship? But some people move, some couples, some relationship constellations move into established relationship energy through trials, ordeals, tribulation. They go through trouble, right? Whether that is relational trouble or whether stuff happens in some of their
Happens around
lives,
them. Yeah.
and you just start settling in. So it's not just, oh, does this new relationship energy wear off? My next question is, what's happening next? Is it wearing off and you're finding, oh, without all the projection, because remember, that's a lot of NRE is projection.
Yeah.
And the psychological mechanism of projection is, it's fun, but when it wears off, if there's not something else there, yeah, then there's probably not even friendship to be had. But if you're moving through your NRE stage, and you start questioning for yourself, what 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 do I see? What do I want out of my relationships?
Right.
Am I trying to foster NRE as long as possible? Like, is that actually one of my goals? I've worked with people who that's their goal. They want to stay in that state. In which case, you can do that. Yeah, one of the ways you can do that is by not escalating and by committing together to maintaining a fair amount of distance and oxygen between
Right.
you, like keeping some level of I don't know there. But we have to be careful there because it's also possible for one person in a dyad to manipulate that and to intentionally be keeping somebody on the hook, right?
Which
Fostering limerence
limerence, I
instead.
was going to say, that's, yeah.
Right.
It,
And
they can, it can be disguised as NRE
right. And
depending on the qualities of the relationship.
so just I maybe a little quick reminder that limerence and new relationship energy, like they can overlap, but they are distinct. And limerence is defined by the ambiguity. It's defined by the fact that the other person, this is an unequal partnership. There's a level of infatuation, obsession with the other person. Now, there can absolutely be a level of obsession with NRE, but the real characterization, the real difference in limerence is that limerence is the state of being infatuated almost to an involuntary level. It's characterized by this strong desire for reciprocation and ongoing confusion provided by the object of the obsession, right? The confusion, the ambivalence is fostered. So that's limerence. And if we separate that out and we say, okay, let's imagine that every dyad here are experiencing the juicy obsession of NRE.
Yep.
And we're like, let's just for a second carve out the limerence. We'll make sure we link that episode here. And if you're in NRE and you want to maintain it, well, if there's reciprocal energy, if each person is putting in energy and getting back energy that feels, yeah, juicy, it feels like a really the kind of connection that is both deepening and meeting something in you, but also like bringing you something back. Like you're really feeling that circle, that reciprocal energy circle. If you want to keep that going, great. It may also fade over just a period of a few weeks, a few months. And if it does it fade to apathy? Does it fade into a sense of, well, I have this relationship and I don't know really have the energy to meet anyone else.
Hmm.
So, yeah, this is okay. Or does it fade into, this person knows me. This person knows me. We can work through challenges and troubles. We have the capacity to be with each other, even if we don't have anything exciting to do or say right now. We can just sit in silence together or enjoy parallel play, just hanging out together, not really doing the same thing together. Even that might be the ebbing into ERE, into that established relationship
Right.
energy.
I've had some dating app conversations that I think it was someone in New York City, which is
Hmm.
far enough away that there wasn't really an opportunity to get together in person. So it was just online. It was just through the apps, right? I think we texted for a while, but through that medium, the two of us never really developed anything beyond just that original spike we got in connecting with each other. And so we connected for a while, and we both kind of tried to hold it up a little bit, but without anything behind that, without having established um some real some real relationship, what I think of as relationship events of
Mm,
sharing particular celebrations or griefs or that kind of thing, or just interesting things that happened really to us, not on the surface, but as people. We never really got there, and so eventually it just sort of fizzled. So there was
yeah.
nothing to replace that excitement of, hey, here's a new person. Let me see what's going on. Oh, I see these things that really make me feel warm or electric or whatever your particular feeling is. And then we just never turned it into anything else. And I think that's, for me, you asked what I do with it. And I think that if it's someone that I want to continue, I'm trying to convert it. I'm trying to convert it into something deeper. Or at
You're trying to,
least, if not convert, like backfill underneath it. Have some foundations of something beyond just the excitement.
I really appreciate that because the idea of, actually actively fostering the established relationship energy often kind of it falls out of the conversation. Maybe we should do a
Yeah.
separate episode on that because it's something you and I work on
Yeah.
all the time. But I think it also, it's not like there's a clean line in the sand.
No.
So I really appreciate what you're pointing to, that it's not that, even on a neurochemical level, it's not that you're just going to wake up one day and boom, all
Right.
the NRE zhuzh is gone. It There are these phases, and things fade and pick back up, and then sometimes are jostled right to the top of the pile again. I really like the idea of the relationship milestone. In fact, sometimes the reason we don't know what to do with our relating without the escalator is we're just looking for milestones. We're
Yeah.
looking for, what are the special events? What are the things I'm going to experience with this person that will let me feel we're in this. We're in
Hmm.
a thing. This is a thing. And it can be hard to not just choose the typical mono escalator
Yeah.
options. Like, now we're dating, now we say I love you, or now we're
Yeah.
having this kind of sex, or now we've increased it. We're having a different kind of sex. We're traveling. We're moving in together. Now we're setting up a life together. Now we're married. Now we're there.
Yep.
But there are a million little milestones that happen
Yeah.
along the way.
And
Those
I think
special events,
I like the
inner
milestone
events.
inner events. Yeah, I like the milestone concept, and I think I'm starting to like the concept of a landmark, because it's not on a path somewhere, but I like to know what the landscape of the relationship is. And so, like you said, there are some internal things that happen,
Yeah.
and they may feel like transitional events,
Mhm.
like I think the public is generally familiar with the relationship escalator, the
Well,
actions of
this
it,
public is
of this
anyways.
public is of moving in together, of these phases of relationship, and some of those things are big transitions, and I think that yeah, sometimes it's just I was around when you changed jobs and we
Yeah,
talked about it and we shared feelings about it and I celebrated with you and I grieved the loss and all those things. And those are, it's not like it's not a milestone. We're not headed anywhere, but it's an event that holds a spot.
right. And so sometimes we're nurturing ERE as in we're doing things to create that that sense that we're moving forward with someone, but sometimes we're just experiencing life near someone
Yeah.
and we start to have enough experience that we have that established relationship energy. And again, it's not there's not like an end and a beginning. I was very clearly in limerence with you at the beginning of
Oh,
our relationship.
definitely. Yeah.
Then I moved into NRE once we actually were relating on like a peer-to-peer level.
Right.
It wasn't so uneven. There were power dynamics before that. And that NRE period lasted a long time. And we also had some established relationship energy really strongly going because we'd been friends
Because
for
we'd already
years and
had.
years and years before that. So I don't think there's like a clean line here. But one of the things that stands out to me is have you shifted from the implicit, like just kind of going along, dating, and everybody's just kind of doing stuff that feels right in the moment? Have you shifted from that into having some explicit conversations around
Mm.
agreements, around
Oh, yeah.
what are your expectations? So the listener asked, how do I manage expectations? Well, I'm curious. Are you talking about expectations? Is that a part of the conversation? Is it okay to ask, what is this relationship for you right now? Like, what is it? Or is that still like a question that feels like, oh my God, too soon, too soon? I
Right.
have so many people say that they can't bring up topics like having agreements or having these deeper conversations about who you want to be in relationship because they're getting pushback from people saying, no, 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 no. I just want this to be fun. This should be, oh my God, my least favorite phrase ever, drama free.
Oh, good grief. Yeah.
I I mean,
Hmm.
I get the sentiment behind it, but sorry, we're all dramatic. Like this is life, and some of life is really dramatic. I get not wanting to invent new drama,
That I
but
get.
having an
Yeah.
agreement, like asking someone to share with you what their what your expectations are and
Hmm.
how you're gonna show up for each other, that is not drama. That is not drama.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
when we move from that like that need to just go with the flow and keep things light and not have any expectations into, well, I could still be an NRE and also be having some of these bigger conversations and be really delving with you. And that to me helps balance the NRE in a sort of pure form would be just based on the wash of neurochemicals. Like you're just caught in the tide of that. I want to intentionally move that into, yeah, and how do I leverage all of that yummy feeling into us building something, whether that's a friendship, a romantic partnership, a romantic friendship, a sexual partnership, a sexual partnership that has some specific limits or contexts only, like whatever it's going to be. How do we get there? Because we only get there by moving out of that time and place where it's all just up for grabs and we're just doing like whatever feels good tonight.
Yeah. And I think, I don't think this is universal at all, but I've definitely heard the sentiment of NRE being about that. Well, we're not going to plan anything. We're just going to let it happen.
Yeah.
And I don't think that has to be all there is to NRE. Um, but the but you're not going to be writing agreements if you're thinking we're just going to show up and see what happens. Other
Right.
than, I mean, I guess you could write that down, but it seems a little redundant.
Well, you could have an agreement with yourself about that, I
Hmm.
suppose, about just sticking to, yeah, we're going to stay in the
Oh,
implicit. We're
But of
going to
course, yeah, I mean that's an
You
agreement you could
can
have.
with yourself,
Yep.
and you could even have that with other people. I really do wonder about the overall, like, are you going to be okay over the long term if you really can't have any expectations about how you're treated, how you're
Yeah.
included in someone else's world?
Yep.
Um, Often that feels okay at
Yeah.
the beginning,
But
and then it hits a wall.
as I was saying that, I realized just showing up and seeing what happens, um, you better bring all of your bottom line boundaries and requirements there, like the things that you absolutely need for your own personal, emotional, and
Yeah.
physical safety. I hope you're bringing those along with you, but NRE can sometimes be louder
Yeah,
than those.
I think it actually dulls
Yeah.
people's bottom line requirements. We talked about this earlier. Your bottom line requirements can be, they're yours. They may be unreasonable. Like, some objective third party might be like, that's an unreasonable bottom line requirement, but they're yours. And frequently, when you're in the new stage of a relationship, we look over that stuff. And a lot of us unconsciously, I have definitely found myself doing this, even with you. Okay, all the time with you. The whole beginning was me
Oh, yeah.
hoping it would
Trying to.
become something,
Yep.
muting all of my own actual bottom line requirements, disregarding my own boundaries, and allowing the relationship to unfold at the pace that you were okay with and that seemed available, which meant years in, it's why I take co-ownership of, yeah, we were in an abusive dynamic and I volunteered to be there.
Right.
It was awful and it was silly. I knew better than that, but I had let the NRE energy,
Mhm.
or the NRE, I had let it just, that was very redundant.
Thank you. I appreciate you fixing that.
I know that was going to itch later, right?
The ATM machine.
Oh no.
Um,
I had let my PIN number, wait, we could do this all day. Okay.
we could, yeah.
No, no, no.
Anyway,
I had let the NRE carry me, like actually buoy me over the surface of
yep.
every relational need I
Yeah.
had, which sucked because you didn't actually know me.
Right. I couldn't. So you couldn't count on me to help you hold them because I didn't know what they were.
So one of the things to work on in our expectations isn't just, hey, what are my expectations of the other person, but what are my expectations of myself?
Yep.
Am I actually showing up as my whole self? And this is tricky, right? We want to put our best foot forward. We want to be dating with that energy of like, yeah, I want to show up here. I'm not going to just, I don't want to be a sloth. I don't want to,
Right.
I'm not going to show up with crumbs on my shirt. I want to, like, I want to be, there is a level of performance in
Yeah. I don't want
dating.
to show up overly rigid, like with, I want to show up with some flexibility around
Yeah,
what we're interested in, what we like to talk about. Well, let me see what it's like to do these things with this particular person. I
right.
don't usually like them, but maybe I'll like olives this time.
Absolutely. I went on dates 2 years ago. I was seeing a couple different people. You know, one was really into cycle racing, and one was really into nature, botanicals, and like, yeah, it's great to be influenced by that. I felt myself like, oh, I'm kind of engaging in those topics, and I feel myself like, oh, like I actually got my bicycle back out, and like I didn't even talk to them about that, but it inspired in me. Like, yeah, you do want to show up with that flexibility and allow yourself to be influenced and inspired, especially inspired. But at the same time,
Yeah.
if we overfunction here, if we lean in and we lose track of who we are, or we never even present who we actually are
Right.
to the other person, well, the reality is that down the road, how long are you going to maintain that performance? What's going to happen when
Right.
that, now the relationship, I mean, there's a reason I have never dated someone in a, like, but I know it would be pretty simple in my area to start attending D&D groups. I do know how to play D&D. I could do it. I could start attending D&D groups. I would have at least one new partner, like within a couple months.
Sure.
I'm
Oh, yeah.
certain of it.
I am too.
The D&D poly crossover in our area, very, very strong. But I know myself, and I know that I lose interest. There's a reason why I really only play with my kids. It's because I lose interest. So I need to be written in and out of campaigns really quickly because I get bored. And I don't want to find myself in that situation again because I found, well, I mean, I wound up with a whole marriage out of that basically. But I don't want to be a person who plays a lot of D&D, so I am not putting myself in that situation.
So one of the ways that NRE can be, you said that, it isn't necessarily just going to like one day stop, but if the NRE is based on performance, like if it is significantly impacted by the way I have performed to show up in this relationship, and then I get tired of performing and stop, that can stop the NRE right away.
Right, right. And so now, circling back to what do I do when I have two, right? So one of the things that's happening in NRE is our energy level actually goes up. Like
Right.
my physical energy level goes up. Often I will stop eating as much. I will be literally running around more. I start exercising more. I am an energizer bunny. And when it's doubly so, doubly so. I mean, for me, it is a volume turner upper. It is intense. And that feels great, but it can also burn me out. So
Hmm.
one of the other things to look at is how are you managing your own energy? The
Right.
energy that is not directly related to these other people and the influence that they are having on your experience. Are you in touch with what you actually need? Are you still taking time for yourself? Because one of the things that's
Hmm.
hard enough, you add one partner
Yeah.
to an established relationship, and even that, oh, okay, wait, now I have to recalibrate my energy. Now I add another partner. Okay, and when both are NRE, I mean, I've seen people working through their calendars going, oh, I haven't spent an evening to myself in 3 months because they're seeing two or three new people. They're really, really excited, and it's great, but they haven't had any time to themselves and they're burnt out. Not
Yeah.
because the relationships are a problem or bad, there's nothing wrong, but now they start finding themselves like undermining their relationships
Oh, yeah.
because they
Hmm.
haven't claimed the space and time that they need for themselves.
Yep.
And I say that as an extrovert. Even us extroverts are going to need our time for still being in touch with who we are, not in relationship. What the balance of that time is, I don't know. You have to figure out for yourself. But
So I hear in that um, yes. So if you've got multiple NREs to manage, you're going to want to manage your output, um,
right,
your energy output, and also manage the things that feed you, that bring you bring you the energy that you can then bring to your relationships and to yourself, taking care of yourself. And I bring that up because that is something that I tend to lose track of. It's like, oh, I'll manage my energy output, and I forget about the very critical necessity of making sure that energy is coming in as well.
right. And this is a place where I have found, okay, so I've been in NRE in two places while also partnered with you.
Hmm.
And I I have to take 100% responsibility then for dipping into your energy and using you as an input source,
Oh,
but
hmm,
not giving back, not being as reciprocal with you, having all of my output be focused out there.
yep,
And you've been very generous about that, and really kind about how you bring it up. And I'm not sure everybody would even know to be kind about it. I could imagine you in those situations having gotten really frustrated, having felt abandoned, having felt lonely. Um, you did a good job of bringing up the fact that we have agreements and that you would also like attention. But in your weaker moments when you weren't there,
yeah,
the thing that I
hmm,
remember coming up was this passive aggressive pulling away. You didn't actually come and get me, you would pull away
right,
and kind of look sullen and start creating like your own sort of narrative
yep,
around what was going on. And
right,
all of that feels very normal. But the topic of you, like for you to then bring up what you needed
hmm,
was important, but it was just as important for me to notice. How am I attending to all of my relationships? And this goes for friendships too. A
yeah,
big place I see NRE interrupt life is our friendships. Do we drop everybody who doesn't count as because the mono paradigm teaches us to prioritize our romantic and sexual relationships over all others. And so one of the ways to notice if NRE is problematic is, have you pulled back from your friends? Did you just drop
Yep.
everybody? Are you showing up still? It's worth looking at because it can be an indicator that you're caught up in the throes of that and not actually building the life you want, but allowing yourself to just like ride a tsunami. You're just like you're on
Yep.
this huge wave. And I know it's fun, but if you want this to work out in the long term, then we don't want to be abandoning ourselves, our established partners, our established friendships. We actually need to be able to balance all of that. And if that sounds complicated, yeah, welcome to complex relationship
Right.
structures.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a bad thing. It is absolutely possible, but it does take a level of increased patience around like what it takes to do relationships. Like as we have more people to tend to, including ourselves, and we're still trying to figure out how to manage multiple people's needs and not lose ourselves.
Yeah.
It's okay if it's hard.
Yeah.
Like that's okay. That in itself does not mean you're not cut out for it. But if everything we've just talked about sounds like, whoa, I don't want any of that. I mean, this is life. This
Yeah.
is relating. It's relating like, yeah, the dial's turned up. It is. It's noisier. But one of the ways you can manage that, and I see you do it all the time, is you make decisions about how to balance and actually keep yourself in slower burn situations.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
don't do like you just don't do fast burn. I've
No.
never seen you do fast burn.
No. Not my thing.
It's apparently not.
Apparently.
And
Oh,
which is too bad
once.
for me because I would very much enjoy it.
Yeah.
I would enjoy watching that.
I think I've had 2 experiences that went like that.
Okay.
And they're going back a ways now, and not all of them were well considered.
Well, I mean, please, everything we do in life doesn't need to be well considered.
That's
Can we
a
just
good
agree
point.
on that?
Yep.
Okay. But you pace yourself.
Yeah, I do. Well, I pace myself in everything.
And I tend not
And
to
you
pace
tend
myself.
to go full out. Yep.
And so the last couple times that I was like, I tend to date, like I've said before, like I'll go out and I'll be like, okay, I'm dating and I'm open, I'm available, and then I'll kind of settle in for a while into whoever I'm dating currently, and I'm like, that's enough. I don't want to be actively pursuing. And the last couple times, I noticed that I was giving myself more leeway to just be patient and not pushing, and it was really interesting because for me, it actually kept the NRE high. I felt how my saying, yeah, I'm only available a couple of times a month, but I'm in. I want to date you. I want to see you. But this is what I'm available for. It wasn't just about managing, I'm not allowed. I don't have not allowed in my life. Nobody's in charge of that but me. But it was about really checking for, what can I do while really staying true to myself?
Yeah.
And slowing down made it a little tricky to date because of what I noticed is there are a lot of people out there looking for that hot, fast burn.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun, but it's not generally maintainable.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Like, how do you want to dose this down a little bit and allow yourself to experience the NRE without it being turned, don't turn the dial all the way to 11. Can you allow the experience to be drawn out? Does that feel safe? Does it feel possible?
As we're talking about this, I realized that what I want to do is have a conversation with the original, the person with the original question, to dig into the details, because how you would verify that you're holding your boundaries, that you're meeting your bottom line requirements, that you're showing up authentically. That's a conversation, because there are no universals in any of that. And now I'm curious, Like,
Right.
what is it? What are the burns like in these two relationships? And, how long have they been going on? And how did they start? Like, all, because the details matter so much about what you're going to do next.
Right.
But it
And
is
then, of
so
course, the
much.
context of the rest of your life.
And the
What
whole
are you
rest of your
available
life, what
for?
about what are you available for?
And that brings us to the conversation we just had about, can you articulate to others what you're available for, or do you make yourself available for whatever they're available for?
Hmm.
Do you feel the constant
Right.
need to just meet them where they are? So all of so much of the work in non-monogamy is about self-awareness, is about understanding yourself as a changing being.
Yeah.
You're growing, you're changing, you're not just one thing, but understanding that if you understand what you're available for, if you can articulate that, if you can manage what you're experiencing by giving yourself enough time to process it and to feel into the different situations
And to
that you're
give
in.
yourself enough time and the right experiences
Yeah.
to keep yourself full, energized, to keep yourself able to have the energy to bring all the things you want to bring, and ask for all the things you want to ask for.
Well, and so to do that, that's the work. That's why we talk about non-monogamy as an individuation path,
Yeah.
because you're getting to know yourself
Yeah.
better and better. Individuation is the process of bringing unconscious material, so all of the you that you do not yet know,
Yeah.
and bringing it into your conscious awareness, and then working with that, knowing that the vast majority of it's going to slip back into your unconscious again.
Yeah.
And so that's what individuation is. As I do that, as I bring more of myself forward through experiences like NRE, through experiences, honestly, through experiencing myself self-abandoning, through realizing oh, I did it again. I played out that pattern again, through the 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 ick of trying to negotiate for explicit expectations and finding out that, yeah, this NRE is hot, but this person's not available to actually make this relationship transparent.
Hmm.
All of that stuff, it's valuable.
It
It's
is. It's
valuable
valuable, and
psychologically.
when you have two of them going on at once, you have this rare opportunity to do this differential diagnosis of what are the similarities and contrasts here, that as they reflect on me,
Right, because you're the common
because
element
you're
in
the
there.
common
So
element. Yep.
there's the trick. Can you withdraw your desire, your very human desire, to compare these two people and instead check yourself? How are you
Yeah. How
showing
are
up?
you
Where
showing
are
up in
you
the?
showing up?
Hmm.
How are you showing up differently? How are you showing up the same in each of these relationships?
Yeah.
And what is that teaching you about yourself? Okay, so maybe the original listener would like to join us. We have free Ask Me Anything calls about monthly. There's the next one will be up if you go to joliehamilton.com/AMA. You can register there. It's just a casual conversation. Ken and I are there. We'd love to see you
Love
and
to hear
anybody
about
else
it.
who's lit up by this topic. Thanks, Ken. This was great.
Thank you.
There's no one right way to design your relationship. And lots of people, actually about 25%, according to a recent national survey, are interested in some type of open relationship. But how do you know if you are ready to open up happily? Not everyone is, and that's no problem. I've got a 60-second quiz that will give you the answer. And even better, you'll walk away with your next step, whether you're good to go or not so much when it comes to opening up. And this is no BuzzFeed nonsense. I personally designed this quiz from my years of academic research. Go to joliequiz.com. That's JOLIQUIZ.com, and find out if you're ready to open up happily and what to do if you are or if you're not.